Have you ever done a spell and felt completely disappointed because nothing really happened? You followed the moon phase, you lit the candle, you said all the words that were written in this book, but still nothing really happened and nothing seemed to have changed in your life? In today's video, I'll show you how you can create your own spells and rituals that actually work. But before we talk about spell work, let's talk about magic for a second. Like, what is magic? Because it really is crucial to understand how all of this works. Now, when we talk about magic, and that's at least my understanding of it all, what we are really talking about is the manipulation or direction of energy towards a certain outcome to achieve a certain outcome. Now, everything in this universe is made up of energy, and even though a tree or a rock or a flower seems solid, it really is energy. And thanks to Einstein's famous quotation, we also know that mass is just a form of energy. So when we do spell work as witches, we are not trying to force physical matter to change instantly, but we are rather working with the energy beneath the surface, and we are trying to direct and manipulate this energy to achieve a certain outcome. And sometimes this manipulation of energy is very straightforward, like imagine shooting an arrow, but it can also be more gentle, like imagine whispering your intention into the wind and let the wind carry it away. Now, I think when you are practicing a lot, you can do spells that are very straightforward, because you really start to understand what works for you and how to focus your intention, how to manipulate energy, right? Your personal energy, or how to release energy into objects, or how to work with different energies that surround you. But you could also consciously decide to do a spell or a ritual that is doing the ripple effects, right? That is like first growing roots and then getting stronger over time. So all of that is okay, all of that is magic, and all of that is intending to create change so that we can consciously create our lives. Okay, so is it a spell or a ritual? Now, both of them are magical workings, but they are not quite the same. And I know that there is different views on this, but here is my understanding of it. Now, a spell is primarily centered around your intention and your words. So you don't need any magical tools or ingredients, because the magic of a spell is not in the objects or items that you use, but in the focused energy that you direct towards a specific outcome. Now, sometimes a spell can be accompanied by a certain action, like lighting a candle, for example. So a spell could be, for example, you blowing out the candle on your birthday cake, or making a wish when you see a shooting star, or stirring your tea in the morning. Like, all of this is a spell to me. And I find it so interesting that one of the origins of the word spell comes from a Germanic word that literally means to speak. And so in my practice, a spell must be spoken out loud, because spoken words carry so much more energy than thoughts alone. A ritual, on the other hand, is a structured sequence of actions that are performed with intention. And you can think of it like that. A ritual is multiple magical workings that are kind of stacked on top of each other. So in a ritual, you may start with cleansing the space, then casting a protective circle, then grounding and centering, and then calling in the spirits or deities that you want to work with in this ritual. They are also used to honor deities, to celebrate the wheel of the year, for example, like the different Sabbats, but also religious ceremonies are often rituals. And I also found that rituals are often done at a specific time. So for example, a full moon ritual or a new moon ritual, and that rituals often repeat, or certain ritualistic actions of a ritual will repeat like in the next ritual. But just to be clear, spells and rituals are both magical workings, but you could also do magical workings that are neither a spell nor a ritual. For example, you could take a bath that is not a spell or a ritual, and also spells may or may not be part of a ritual. So a ritual can include a spell, but is not limited to a spell, and I really hope that this makes sense. If you have done some research about witchcraft, you probably heard this. Intention is everything in witchcraft. You don't need to do anything else than keeping your intention focused, and this is all that it takes to get magical responses. And I don't think that this is true, because yes, your intention is a very important ingredient in any magical working, in a spell or a ritual. But if you don't know how to manipulate energy, how to direct energy, then you will not get any magical responses from your magical workings. Like, think about a car. If you have a car, that's great, but if it does not have fuel, it cannot drive and bring you anywhere, right? I believe that as witches, we set an intention and we then focus our willpower on a specific end goal. So for example, you could set the intention to paint your room, but you could never do it. So it needs more than an intention. The intention is a really important first step, but I truly believe that with a spell or a ritual, what we are really doing is transforming this intention into will. Like after a spell, after a ritual, you should have no doubt that they worked and that they will bring your desired outcome. And this is when your intention was transformed into will, into belief, right? So be it, so it is. We charge a magical practice with energy and we then release or direct it in whatever way to change our physical reality, right? Because we want to not only be passive observers, we want to actively create our lives. And that's why I think that intention is not enough to do a spell or a ritual or any other magical practice, because we don't want to do witchcraft, we want to do witchcraft. Okay, so you may wonder now, how do I manipulate energy? And this is something that you will not learn overnight if you cannot manipulate energy already. I think this is like the most important skill that you will ever have to master as a witch, because remember, a car will not drive without fuel, it will not start. Now, if you have never manipulated energy in your life, all of this probably sounds really weird, and it's also really difficult to explain because the manipulation of energy is different for everyone. So for example, I can see it and feel it, but someone else may hear it or smell it, right? And to me, like if I had to describe it, the best I can do is, it feels like if you are working with two magnets, and you know when they have like this push and pull thingy that they do, this is like the best I can describe it. And to me, it's like this golden stream of light, like a golden lake of particles, kind of. Again, really difficult to describe, but if you want to learn and you don't know already how to manipulate energy, I recorded a guided meditation for you guys. You will find it up here and I will put it in the description box down below as well, so you can start to understand what energy manipulation is like and why it is so important to include in your magical workings, because it will click. I'm 100% sure it will click at some point, and you will understand why energy is so important in magical workings. Alright, so now that you know about energy manipulation and that you can learn to direct your own personal power, it's also important to know that you can work with external energies to amplify your spell work. And my practice is highly influenced by Celtic shamanism, so I truly believe that everything that has a shadow has a spirit and is inhabited by a spirit. So yes, even a stone, even though so many people forgot that everything is inhabited by a spirit and that everything is connected with each other. Now you can work with these energies to amplify your spell work and to kind of give the energy for your spells without using too much of your own personal energy, because if you have done a spell before and you had a headache or you felt drained or tired, it's probably because you used up too much of your own personal power. So it's really good to know that you can work with other energies to kind of give you the fuel for your spells and rituals. And what I found is that the more you practice energy manipulation, the more you start to sense energy around you as well, in whatever way that means for you. But you start to get a feeling of what tree would work well for this specific spell or ritual, or maybe what place has a certain energy. So for example, in my shamanic training, we went to different places, and some places gave energy, some places were kind of taking away energy, and you could drop things that you no longer wanted to carry with you. So by practicing energy manipulation, you will start to get a feeling of these energies and develop a sense of what would be a good amplifier or kind of partner for your spell work. Now, I really love working with the elements if I want to include external energies in my spell work to amplify my spell work, because during my training as a shamanic practitioner, we really connected to the elements and we got to know the spirits of the 4 elements. And yes, the elements have a spirit as well. They are really ancient and really powerful. And so I built over time this really strong connection with the elements and like a relationship that is based on respect and compassion and trust. And I will choose the element based on the energy of my desired outcome. So for example, if I want to do spell work related to protection and centering and grounding, I will choose the spirit of earth. If I want to do anything related to the emotions, to transformation, cleansing, purification, I will work with the spirit of water. Now the spirit of air could be if I want to like work with a kind of messenger or someone who can pass on any messages, and the spirit of fire if again I want any kind of transformation. And so I really love working with the elements. And yeah, as I said, make sure you build a relationship and that it is a relationship that is based on trust and respect. It's a mutual relationship. You're not only asking for things because this is rude if you think about it, and that you know the energies that you are working with. So for example, if a stranger comes up to you and says, please give me a new job, I hate my job, it's probably weird, right? So make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, that you get to know the energies, the spirits, and this could be deities, plant spirits, tree spirits, it could be the good people, and like anything you can think of. Make sure that you build a relationship, you know what you're working with, that it is a relationship based on respect and trust, and know that especially if you are working with any spirits in nature, like the good people, most of the time, if you are asking for something, it will not be without an exchange. So again, just keep that in mind and know what you're working with. Okay, so by now you already know a lot about magic and spells and rituals, but there is something that needs to be said that I think is pretty clear, and it is what a spell cannot do. Now, a spell is not going to change the fundamental laws of nature, and no spell is going to cancel out gravity or break the laws of physics, because that's not how magic works. Because magic isn't about bending reality to your will per se, like remember bending the physical reality. It's more about tapping into the flow of energy that is already here and then guiding it with intention. We manipulate energy, but we don't change the physical laws, or we don't cancel out gravity or like change the laws of nature. Now, before we talk about how to create your own powerful spell that actually works, there is something that I want to quickly share, because this is what came up for me when I first started learning about witchcraft and spells and rituals and grimoires. And it is, should I use a spell that someone else wrote? Like, should I use a pre-written spell, or should I make my own spells? And don't get me wrong, like working with a spell or using a spell that someone else created can be a really cool starting point. It can really help you to get a feeling of what other practitioners do and what their spells look like, right? It's like tipping your toe into the water and just like seeing what other people do. But if you create your own spell, you really can infuse it with your own intentions, with your thoughts and your energy. Like if you create your own spells, they really will get your own unique signature. They will carry your energy, and this is what makes them so powerful. So I truly believe that making your own spells is more powerful than using a pre-written spell. Again, nothing wrong with like doing a quick pre-written spell, but if you take the time to really come up with your unique spell, I really truly believe that you will see better results, because it's just what's resonating with you, right? I can give you a spell, but if you don't connect anything to the crystals or the powders that I'm using or the plants or the spirits I'm working with, the spell will do nothing for you. Like, I'm pretty sure it will not get you any magical response. Alright, so now that you know all of that, let's finally talk about how you can create a spell that actually works. And I'm going to share a little step-by-step guide, and this is just what I came up with over the years, but as always, feel free to adapt it to your own unique practice. Also, what I usually do is I create a spell in advance. Like, I take my time, I create a spell, and then I will like wait until it feels right to do the spell, or maybe I have a specific timing. So I will not like do the spell and do the working like right after each other, if this makes sense. So I will usually have a little window of time between creating the spell and actually doing the magical working. Okay, so the first step when creating a powerful spell is to state your intention. So you really want to get clear on what it is that you want to accomplish with the spell or ritual. So what do you want to get out of the spell or ritual? Do you want to let go of something? Is it a letting go ritual? Or do you want to attract more abundance? Like, really get clear on your goal, on what it is that you want, and make sure to write all of that down on a piece of paper with a pen. We don't want to have all of this floating around in the digital world. We want it in the physical reality, because this will also be your guideline when you are creating like the spell. When you come up with the tools and correspondences and symbols, the intention really will guide you to how the spell will look like. And during the spell or ritual itself, really what you want to do while performing, again, is to turn the intention into will. Like, you want to create a spell or a ritual that will leave you without any doubt that the magical working will do the work. So be it so it is. So for example, when I'm done with a spell or a ritual, usually what happens is that during the ritual, the intention transforms into will, and then at the end of the ritual or spell, this will is then transformed into an inner knowing kind of. So when I'm done with my magical workings, I just know that my work is done here, like so be it, so it is. The universe, God heard me, and like I'm done. I can clean now my magical tools, I can cleanse the space again, because like I just know that the spell or ritual will work. Alright, so after you stated your intention, you want to decide on the magic. And this is probably my most favorite part, because now it's about deciding what tools you are going to use. Like what magical tools, and where you want to do the spell, when you want to do the spell. Like thinking about all the correspondences and symbols that you can include in your spell. Because remember that we are trying to incorporate as many correspondences as possible, so that we kind of create an environment that is amplifying our intention, so it can transform into will and this inner knowing that our work here is done. We want to create a kind of surrounding that is really showing us that our desired outcome is about to manifest into our physical reality. So this is why I love this step the most, because now it's really about getting personal, seeing what you connect with, like your desired outcome, what colors, what symbols, what spirits, deities, plants, right? So really get clear on the magic. And there is probably a lot of people that will tell you that you don't need anything to manipulate energy and to create your desired outcome. And I agree with that to a certain degree, because as I said so many times, and I really hope it sticks with you now, is that what you are doing when coming up with a spell or a ritual and choosing all of the ingredients is to create this kind of amplifying energy. Like looking at things that you connect with your desired outcomes will really make it easier for your mind to understand that your working here is done. And to me, like I have such a monkey mind, I just really need something to focus on. So having things and like actions to do is really so helpful for me, because it really helps me stay focused. So many people will tell you you don't need things to do the magic, and again, it is true to a certain degree, but it really can help you amplify your intention and stay focused, and just really show your subconscious that like you're doing the work now, and after that it is done, it's out in the universe, you sent the message and you just have to wait and receive it now. So again, really become clear about the magic that you are going to use in the spell. When do you want to do the spell? Like maybe there is a really good time that you can use that is amplifying the intention and the energy of your desired outcome. Maybe it's a certain phase of the moon. Maybe it's the sun going into a specific zodiac sign. Maybe it's a Sabbath or a season, right? So really decide on when you want to do the spell. And the same goes for where you want to do the spell. So I said this before, I cannot really do spells outside, like I just get so distracted. So I usually will do all my spell work at home. And I will create a really cozy environment so I'm not distracted and I can do my spell work. But for example, you may decide that the ocean is the perfect place to do a spell. Maybe it's under your most favorite tree that is really amplifying your energy, right, that you try to achieve. Or maybe it's also, for example, a crossroads if you want to work with Hecate and you just really need some guidance on which path you should go. Then a crossroads could be a really powerful place to do a spell. And again, really get clear about the magical tools. So what can you use in your spell or ritual so it can amplify your intention and really align yourself to the energy of the desired outcome? Maybe it's a wand, maybe a cauldron, or I don't know, maybe it's a specific item from nature like a shell or a stone maybe a dressed candle, or maybe it is a sigil that you need to create. So really become clear about the magical tools that are relevant for your spell or ritual. And also, if you want to include external energies, or like you want to work with a deity or a spirit or anything like that, this is going into this step as well. So really get clear, for example, what deity could best support your intention, your energy. So for example, if you want to work again with Hecate, if you want to invite Chaos Magic, this could be a really cool goddess to work with. So really get clear and see what resonates with your intended outcome. Alright, so until now we stated our intention and we decided on the magic. Now it is time to write the spell. And again, please make sure you do this with an actual pen and a piece of paper. You want something tangible and in your physical reality. And we don't want all of this to be floating around in digital space. And what I usually do when I'm writing a spell, I'm kind of doing a creative writing exercise. So first of all, I just write down anything that comes up for me that is related to my intention and like the magic that I just decided on. So I write down any words, any sentences that come up for me. I may even draw a picture, and it's literally just a brain dump. And after I did all of that, I kind of go through everything, and for me, words just find their place into the spell. And just to be clear, your spell does not have to rhyme. I just really love rhyming spells, and I just really love when I have a lyric structure. But your spell does not have to have all of that. It can literally be like sentences or words that are meaningful to you. And this is really important. Like, make sure that what you are writing down is meaningful to you. Like, I fall for this trap so many times that I looked up a spell online and I was like, this sounds so much better, so I'm taking that. But then when like actually doing the magical working, the words did not really resonate with me, and like the magical response was like not really good. So I found that when I'm writing a spell, I will know when the spell is done, because when I'm writing through it, I will not feel any resistance in my body. You know, when you're reading it and you're like, this word now sounds weird, I have to find another word. But when the spell is done, you will know it because you can read it, and in your body there is no physical resistance whatsoever. And you can also take notes if you, for example, want to include any pauses that you should make when like reciting the spell, or you want to give yourself a hint when it's time for a certain action, like for example lighting a candle or lighting an incense. Alright, so you stated your intention, you decided on the magic, and you wrote the words that you are going to say during the spell or the ritual. So now it's time to one more time check everything. So what I usually do is I read everything that I just did one more time. Like, I write all of this down. This is super important because we are later on talking about a grimoire, but I'm reading through everything. Like, I check the spell, the words that I'm going to recite in the spell or ritual. I check the correspondences, the plans, like everything that I want to use, the tools, and I really make sure that everything resonates with me. Again, to me, it feels like there is no physical resistance anymore in my body, and then I know that the spell is done. But what I'm also doing is I'm making sure that like everything is according to my ethics and morals. So for example, some other practitioner recommended in their grimoire to use graveyard soil and to collect the graveyard soil at midnight. This is something that I just could not do. It's not resonating with me, but other practitioners may swear by graveyard soil, right? Like, I know some practitioners, they will collect plants and soil from a graveyard, and like, of course not from the graves itself, but like the soil around the graveyard. And this is just something that is not resonating with me whatsoever. And in like this part of the step-by-step guide, you also want to make sure that everything is according to your magical rules. I even encourage you to write down your magical rules. And you probably also heard the Wiccan rule that says, what he sends forth comes back to thee. And so this is something that you can also consider. For example, I don't do hexes. So just make sure that everything is according to what is resonating with you. Don't fall into the trap to do something just because it is recommended by some other practitioners because it worked for them. Like, never do something that is like making you feel you are breaking your own magical rules. Alright, so when you know that now is the time and place to do the spell or ritual, it is time to get practical. And so the first step when you do the actual magical working is to gather your tools. So you want to make sure that in your workspace, in your sacred space, you actually have everything that you are going to need to do the spell or ritual. Like all the magical tools, like your cauldron, your wand, any powders or any candles, anything you will need for that spell or ritual. Because trust me, there is nothing more frustrating than being so immersed in your spell or ritual, and then you need to get up and change the room because you forgot that candle, and you just need that exact candle for the spell or ritual. So make sure you have everything you will need for your magical working. And you also want to prepare the workspace, or like the space where you are going to do the spell or ritual. So make sure that you are creating an environment that makes you feel safe and comfortable, that is not cluttered, because you need to keep up your intention, your focus, your willpower. So make sure everything is clean and just makes you feel comfortable and magical. And make sure that you are not going to be disturbed. This is super important because I tend to go really deep into like the spell or ritual. I'm really immersing myself into it. It's kind of a meditative state I'm into, and like getting pulled out because someone like opens the door is so stressful. So maybe tell your family that you need some time now and you don't want to be disturbed for the time you are doing like whatever you are doing. You don't even have to say what you are doing, like just say you don't want to get disturbed. Alright, so you prepared your workspace where the spell or ritual is going to take place. You gathered everything you need to perform the spell or ritual, and now it's time to cast a protective circle and prepare yourself and get grounded and centered. So I usually like to cast a protective circle first before doing anything else, and this is again inspired by my shamanic practitioners class, where you call upon the different directions and you call upon your allies and your spiritual teachers, right? So this is what I'm doing here. But again, you may have a completely different process when it comes to casting a protective circle. But this is what I do here. And then in this protective circle, I will then go on and prepare myself. I will ground myself. I will center myself. And yeah, this is like super important. I don't do any magical working before I'm not grounded, because I did this mistake in the beginning. I was so like tired, I felt drained, I had a headache, and I didn't even know what was happening, and it was because I was not grounded. Okay, now is the time to do the spell work, to manipulate the energy and release it. And I cannot really give you a step-by-step guide because this part of the process is really highly personal. So for example, you may decide to charge an item first and then speak your spell. Maybe it's the other way around for you. So this all highly depends on the spell or ritual that you came up with in the creation process. But what I'm usually doing is I will like sit down after I'm grounded and I will start to gather my energy. And this is exactly what I'm sharing in the guided meditation. This is how I'm doing it. And then I most of the time will charge an item, for example, a charm bag or something like that, or an amulet. Maybe I'm speaking my intention into something. And yeah, this is the process that I'm using for that. Okay, so your spell or ritual is done now. You spoke the words, you spoke the spell, and you did all the action steps that you defined when you created your spell or your ritual. And now there is another step that is so important, but I feel like so many people forget. And it is to draw back your own energy and clean up and really close everything and anything that you may have opened during your spell or ritual. So, for example, I really love to work with a column of light. And again, this is highly inspired by my shamanic practitioner's training. And through this column of light, you can send energies that you extracted or you no longer want to carry with you, right? This light of column is so powerful, but if you leave it open, it's literally an open door for spirits. So you always want to make sure you close everything and anything that you may have opened during your spells or rituals. Also make sure that you thank deities or spirits that they helped you and release them. And then draw back your own energy. So I do that by, again, grounding, but I also simply state with the intention that I'm calling back all my energy, like from wherever it is right now. And I make sure that I don't leave myself open for like anything else. So this is really, really important. And then you can also clean up the space and you can dispose of anything that you may have used in the ritual. So for example, an herb or something like that, maybe you need to bury something, but always make sure again that we are not harming nature. But now you're basically like doing all the finishing work to close the ritual or spell. And the last step, and again, I feel like so many people forget this, but it is to evaluate your spell or ritual. So what you want to do is to really feel into yourself and see how you are feeling now after doing the spell or ritual. Like, how do you feel? Maybe you feel drained, or maybe you feel really energized and optimistic, right? So really write down how you feel right after doing the spell or ritual. And then you also want to check in regularly, like when do you see something change in your physical world, right? Because you want to track if your magical working is successful or not. And how can you evaluate if something was successful or not if you don't remember if something happened after doing a spell or a ritual? And by the way, if you want me to make a separate video about any of the steps that I just mentioned, so for example, how I ground or how I cast a circle, let me know in the comments down below, because this video would get way too long if I describe everything in detail. And I just really wanted to give you an overview, like the basics of spell work and like the most important outline for it. But if you want any videos about that, let me know in the comments down below. And now it is finally time to talk about the grimoire. And the grimoire is one of my most favorite topics in witchcraft. I just really, really love writing in my grimoire. I love creating a grimoire. And this is like an essential when it comes to spell work. Because let me tell you, there is nothing more frustrating than like doing a spell or a ritual, not writing it down, and then something magical happens, you achieve your desired outcome, and you have no idea how you did it, like what ingredients you used in your spell, when you did it, and like things like that. So your grimoire is basically your magical diary, and you want to keep everything related to your spell work and your magical workings in your grimoire. So keep your successful spells in there, your correspondences, right? Your rituals, how you performed them, the exact steps of the actions. So you really want to keep everything in there. It's highly personal. Again, it's your magical diary, and it is so much fun writing and keeping a grimoire. And what I usually do is I will create a spell or a ritual, and I will then perform it and evaluate it. So I will see if it was successful or not, or if I have to change anything or what I can adapt. And when I'm 100% satisfied with a spell, when I know that it works now, it creates the magical response that I want, I will then transfer it from the piece of paper into my grimoire. And I will use the colors that resonate with the spell. So for example, a spell that is like about love, I will write it in the color red, and so on. Alright, magical one, so I really hope that this video was helpful, and I just really wanted to create a little guide to spell work because you always ask me to share my spells, but I feel like if I simply share my spells and rituals, again, it will not really help you, and now you know why it's not really helpful if I simply share what I'm doing and what works for me. But I really hope that it was helpful for you in any way, and if it was, then please don't forget to do the YouTube magic and like the video, because this is showing the YouTube fairies that they can recommend my content to more people. Also comment down below and share the video with someone who may need to hear any of this information, who may need a little guide for spell work. And we will hang out again next week. So I really hope you have a beautiful, wonderful week, and see you then. Bye bye.